Concerning Mars missions, NASA wants to crash a spacecraft on the planet Mars. Why is it planning to deliberately crash the future spacecraft on Mars? Counterintuitive new landing concept. It has the potential to reduce the cost of safely landing hardware on the planet and open up more treacherous terrain for future missions. NASA is working on spacecraft designed to deliberately crash onto the surface of Mars. It will provide a new and easier way to land rovers on the red planet. The NASA Space Agency already successfully placed craft on the Martian surface 9 times. It relied on a mixture of parachutes, airbags, jetpacks to ensure their expensive exploration tech survives each landing. But now engineers are working on a new kind of lander. It's dubbed Simplified High Impact Energy Landing Device, or SHIELD for short. It uses an accordion-like collapsible base akin to the crumple zones on modern cars to absorb the energy of these touchdowns on Mars. SHIELD project manager Dr. Lou Giersch of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL in California, said, "We think we could go to more treacherous areas. At such sites, we would not want to risk trying to place a billion-dollar rover with our current landing systems." Traditionally, NASA targeted landing sites on Mars that have flat ground, which is much safer, of course, to touch down upon than rocky or undulating terrain. Dr. Gears said maybe we could even land several of these at different difficult-to-access locations to build a network. Now, the idea for SHIELD, a deliberate crash landing on Mars, actually came from another NASA project that called for a safe crash landing on Earth. This Mars Sample Return campaign is working to bring back rock samples from the surface of the red planet collected by the Perseverance rover and placed in airtight metal tubes. A pair of future spacecraft, the Mars Ascent Vehicle and the Earth Return Orbiter, will lift these sample tubes off the Martian surface and back to Earth safely, crash a landing in a deserted location from which the geological specimens can be recovered for analysis. And while studying possible approaches for this landing, NASA engineers began to wonder if the same concept might be used in reverse to better deliver technology to Mars as well. SHIELD team member Velibor Kormakochev of JPL says, if you want to land something on Earth, why can't you do it the other way around for Mars? And if we can do a hard landing on Mars, we know SHIELD could work on planets or moons with denser atmosphere, he said. The former would include Earth. In fact, the highest atmospheric density found on the red planet is around 0.02 kilometers per square meter. It's the equivalent of the rarefied atmosphere density found at an altitude of 22 miles above our Earth surface. A vital requirement for SHIELD is that the design must be able to protect the sensitive electronics, and similarly, its Mars Sample Return counterpart should be capable of preserving the sample tubes and their precious contents. Can you imagine if this thing crashes on Earth and everything is blown to smithereens? Now, to test both, NASA engineers have been using a so-called drop tower. It's a 90 feet tall apparatus with a giant sling for hurling objects onto the ground at the same speed that would be reached by a spacecraft during a real crash landing. Before transferring to JPL, Mr. Kormakovich worked for the automobile industry using crash test dummies to explore how impact affects road vehicles. In many of these tests, he explained cars are placed on sleds that are accelerated to phenomenal speeds before being slammed into a wall or other kind of barrier. Mr. Karmakorchev said these tests we've done for SHIELD are kind of like a vertical version of the sled tests, but instead of a wall, the sudden stop is due to impact on the ground, of course. Back in August 12 this year, NASA conducted a test to test a drop tower of a full-size prototype of SHIELD's collapsible attenuator, an inverted pyramid of metal rings designed to absorb the force of impact. SHIELD Protect member Nathan Barba said, "Hearing the countdown gave me goosebumps. The whole team was excited to see if the objects inside the prototype would survive the impact. To simulate the electronics that a real spacecraft would carry, the payload for the experiment included the accelerometer, a radio, and a smartphone, the Attenture's journey lasted but 2 seconds, slamming into the ground at a whopping 110 miles an hour, the same speed reached by a Mars lander as it approaches the surface following the effect of atmospheric drag on its entry speed of 14,500 miles an hour. And to make the simulation landing a little more tougher than might be expected in reality, the team placed the dirt landing zone used in previous tests with a 2-inch thick steel plate. Readings taken by the accelerometer revealed that the Shield prototype collided with the plate with a force of around a whopping 1,000,000 newtons, and despite bouncing off the ground and flipping over, an unexpected outcome attributed to the introduction of the metal plate, the team found that all the devices in the Shield prototype survived almost entirely unscathed. Dr. Gersh said the only hardware that was damaged were some plastic components we were not worried about. He concluded overall this test was a success. Whether Shield will be such a smashing success when deployed on Mars, however, remains to be seen, he said. And to that end, with the recent trial complete, the team are now working to design the rest of the lander over the course of the next year. And this is on Express UK by Ian Randall. Now, they do not mention where they want to deliberately crash the spacecraft on Mars. I hope it's in Cydonia, because Cydonia, as we know, has the face on Mars and the pyramids next to the face on Mars. So hopefully they'll go there. Now, please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.